Welcome back to Bulletproof Mindset, your go-to podcast for all things health, fitness and entertainment. I'm your host, Dale Crossar, and in today's episode, as you can tell from the title, we are talking about small group personal training compared to fitness classes and all the pros and cons that come along with that. Now, if you didn't know, at the point of releasing this episode, I have launched my own small group personal training, and this isn't an episode to try and funnel you into that, but it's to shed some light on why I've decided to do that. Small group personal training absolutely has its value, and if done right, can be one of the most powerful ways to get the results you want from your health and fitness. So look, if you are interested in joining the small group personal training, there is a link below, but don't worry, for you guys who can't quite make it out to the facility here in Airdrie, there will be an online variation launching in November. Now, this is going to be free to begin with, so if you're interested in that, get your name down on the waiting list. There'll be a separate link below named Hybrid Small Group Personal Training. If you're new around here, I release episodes every Monday and Thursday at 6 a.m. That's when you can expect episodes from this podcast. If you haven't already, consider leaving a 5-star rating on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you're listening to this. I know this is the same jargon that you hear every episode, but it genuinely is the best way to support this small podcast that I've got going and helps me reach a wider audience and, of course, get on more guests. So with that being said, enjoy today's episode, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Have you ever came across someone who says, it's too late to do that, I'm too old for that? Maybe you're someone who's said that themselves, but what I think about when someone says this, I always think to myself, too late for what? Like, really, what is it? What are you too late to? Too late to rebuild yourself? Too late to pursue your dreams, learn a new skill, be a better version than what you want to be? I always think it's funny that we think that there has to be time frames. So we try to say that the only time that you can get into fitness is when you're younger, or is it the time to pursue your dreams and be more flexible in your choices, when it comes to your career, is between the ages of 18 and 24. You know what I mean? It's like, why is a time frame on it? And look, I get there's certain things, especially financially, when you've got more responsibilities, that taking the leap of faith, if you were to change your career, for example, at the age of 45, 46, 50, 60, it becomes a harder and harder leap to make. But it's never too late. I think, and that might be rich coming from this young 31-year-old here, but the main message I want you to take away is, like, how important is it, the thing that you're striving towards? I think when people say, oh, they're too old to do X and it's too late to do Y, it really comes down to, one, there's probably a lot of insecurity deep within, if I'm being open and honest, and two, it is an excuse. It's a bit of a cop-out. In fact, it is a cop-out, like, to say that it's too late to do something because what? Like, because you don't have enough time. Like, let me put it this way, if you only had, I think I said this a couple of episodes ago, if you only had 5-10 years to live and you've never worked out before, do you think the person who pursues putting the time into fitness, where, yes, the argument is if they'd done that 10 years earlier or 20 years earlier, they would be in a better state from their quality of life. But if you only had 5 years left to live, how's the last 5 years going to look? And it doesn't matter how you're measuring this time component, it is never too late. It's never too late to work on a new skill. It's never too late to pursue your fucking dreams. Like, it's quite sad that we have all these aspirations and stuff when we're younger, and we go into the big bad world and we're just conditioned to fucking, like, feel awkward and weird if we have these dream goals that we want to hit. So dream big, aim big, and I just know that it's never too late. And look, there'll be a lot of you guys, it's like, it is too late because I've tried it and it didn't work out. See, if it didn't work out, try again. And if you get knocked in your arse, try again. Get up and try again, because the whole point of trying, you end up realising that the journey that you end up being on through that process, that is where the sweet spot is. That's where the value and the purpose and the goodness, because as you're on that journey, you end up realising that that's the best part about the pursuit of the goal. The goal itself, yes, it's cool, but it's actually all the work and effort and time and energy that gets put into it that becomes the most rewarding part. So sit in the moment, breathe within it, and just know It's never too fucking late, all right? As you can tell from the title of the episode, we're diving into SGPT, which stands for Small Group Personal Training. Being a personal trainer myself, not that I only just realised what this meant, but I used to see this come up a lot when I started PT, and I used to think to myself, what the fuck is SGPT? And this is the old standard jargon. One of the things I learned when I was working in BT, we had a ton of jargon, like CSS. I'm trying actually really hard to think about what was so ingrained in my vocabulary back then that I've completely wiped out in my fucking brain now. But anyway, there used to be this whole jargon of context, and we used to find ourselves speaking the jargon, and when new recruits came into the business, we'd be talking about it, and they didn't have a fucking clue what we're talking about. And this was an important lesson that I learned that actually carried over into my personal training career and made me a good, effective communicator and coach, to kind of stick away from the jargon, because as coaches we learn about the science and we have a passion and love for how the body moves, the best way to get the squeeze of the muscle, and we start speaking in all the fucking fancy lingo, but we really have to dumb it down so to a level that is able to that the average person can understand, should I say. And back to, I see this all the time, SGPT, and small group PTing has been on, it's been a thing for as early, well, small group PT and fitness classes are two separate things, right? And I'll come on to that in a little sec. But I was actually wrong about the small group PT model. I just assumed it was the same as fitness classes. But I remember seeing this word, SGPT, and I thought, oh, maybe that's just the branding of that coach, and thought it stood for like sculpted glutes personal training, because it was more the female coaches that I seen do this, and I seen it come up again and on someone else's page, and I was like, fucking copycats, man, imagine stealing that other person's brand. And then I realised, oh fuck, it actually stands for small group personal training, which was quite funny to look back on. Anyway, small group personal training is on the rise, I would say. I don't know if it's maybe more on the rise just because, well, I've got a few theories, and I'll come on to the few theories, but what I want to talk about in today's conversation is pros and cons of small group personal training, the comparison and the wrong comparison that is made to fitness classes, and of course, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see that I've actually just started to open up my doors and enter into the market of small group personal training, but I'm going to do it a little bit differently. And look, there's going to be a little offer for you guys if you're interested. A lot of you guys listening to this can make it to the place here in Airdrie, which is fantastic. But there is a large percentage of the audience who, for whatever reason, can't make it to Airdrie. So I will be doing something in the small group personal training setting, but more from an online hybrid sort of approach. Not hybrid in the fucking Nick Bear, but hybrid in the approach of coaching in person vs online, which I'll come on to in a sec. So first things first, let's address what is the difference between small group personal training and fitness classes. Are they not the same? Well, no. In the past, the argument, and I will still stand by this point, I'm a wee bit more open-minded now for sure, but fitness classes is something that's put on in gyms typically to reach the target audience of people who aren't confident to lift weights in the gym, and they like the high energy, high impact, high intensity class environment. Usually they're branded as legs, bums and tums, sweat, HIIT. I mean, the variations of them are endless. But ultimately, there is no structure to this other than the whole point of going into that class is to get your heart rate as high as we fucking can, get you sweating and getting you burning calories. The whole focus is on the burn calorie side of things. And the reason that became a market is because through some weird diet culture or just playing on insecurities of people wanting to lose weight, when you hear burn and fat loss and sweat, you associate that with losing weight, getting into a more aesthetically pleasing body. So it plays on the insecurity of those people, and these people are drawn to these classes. And let's be honest, like, is as intense as some of them may be, most of the exercises that are given out in those classes is kind of easier to do. And the good thing about this is they're usually led by a fitness instructor. Now, in the fitness class culture, this might actually be a separate episode that I'll do on, because I think way back in episode 40 or 50 was when the first time we spoke about this. But fitness classes have different categories within them. You have the whole Les Mills stuff, you have boxer sizes and all these sort of things. But ultimately, fitness classes is not resistance training, right? You will not get strong going to fitness classes alone. And the reason being is because you're doing 20, 30, 40, 50 reps. There's very little emphasis put on form. There's very little emphasis put on technique and your ability to do that. Like usually it's like, oh, fuck it, like just move your arms as fast as you can. There's no control over the different parts of the movement. And with that, all of those combinations of things, it means there's no emphasis put on the resistance profile. And yes, you'll get different weights that you can do, like body pump. But in fact, body pump is one of those things that I thought, right, you know what, I'll give this a go as a personal trainer. If the gym owner wants me to do this, then yeah, you know what, as much as I don't agree with the fitness class, let me put my own spin on it. And that was one of the classes I went to. I'd done it to start with, and I was like, I have no way of modifying this class, because with the typical circuits, you can put pauses in between, you can choose the exercises, you can make sure form's good and or as good as it can be, and really slow everything down. But with body pump, you are working out to the beat of the music for a length of time. So if your form started to break down 10 seconds in, it didn't matter, because the track was going to run for an hour 45 seconds. And rather than taking a rest, guess what the fitness instructors they're doing? Come on, push, a couple more, fucking muster through it, get through it. And this, there can be a time and place for this, but see the typical avatar of men and women who are attracted to this class, they're adrenaline junkies, and they don't exactly have experience with building a strong body. So guess what happens? They end up getting injured, they end up pulling a muscle, or just completely fucking fatiguing themselves, because guess what, going into it, they're already on a low calorie diet, they're already highly stressed from the different parts of their job, and they feel that this is a way they can relieve that stress. But because it's so high intensity, because it's so high in terms of the intensity that you're applying, it's just feeding into that cortisol junkie, that high adrenaline, that high rush. So fitness classes are typically in that setting, and it's the same for spin. As you know, like, you can't really it baffles me with spin classes these days. Like, there is coaches, and I wouldn't even say coaches, it's probably more fitness instructors, because they are fitness instructors, one-to-one personal trainers, coaches. I think they all fall into different categories, but fitness instructors is like, right, you're going to lead the class, right, you're going to drive the class, and they come up with some creative ways to get people to get their sweat on. There's one fitness instructor, or a combination of fitness instructors from a gym that I know, that in their spin class, in the middle of the fucking track, they jump off the bike and they do bloody burpees. Like, it's just, it's comical to think about, because what is the point? What is the end goal with these fitness classes? They want you to think that burning calories will get you to your result. Burning your way through fitness, try to burn as many calories as you can by exercising, is like getting shot, right? You've got a bullet hole through your arm, and then going, I'm just going to put a plaster on that. Yes, it may stop the bleeding for 5 seconds, but ultimately it's no fixing what you need to do. You need to get that stitch taped up, you need to get it checked for infection, all that sort of things. Bit of a mad analogy, but hopefully you get what I'm saying. Now, with fitness classes, trying to burn your calories through these fitness classes, you're not building muscle. If anything, these classes, you will lose muscle to an extent, because especially if it's spin and your body pump and boxercising, where you're just moving your arms and punching and then kicking the air, the dance classes to an extent. However, what I would say about things like your dance type of fitness, that's more fun. It's more like you're moving your body, you're having a laugh, and you're getting into groove of the music. I think there's more of a benefit to that than the other parts of the fitness, like your spin and your body pump and boxercise, because people are more attracted to them to lose weight. Now, there'll be a category of people that go to the dance fit stuff to try and lose weight, and again, it becomes a losing battle, because when you break it down, if you look at any sort of science literature behind this, your body can only really burn anywhere from 5 to 15% of your total calories that's needed for that day, right? So it doesn't matter how intense your workout is, your body will not burn as many calories as what your watch says or what you think. And this fucking hard thing to try and understand with this is, if you keep going to these fitness classes, just like the cardio episodes that we've done in the past, the more that you do, the more efficient your body gets at that stress response. And because in these class environments, only thing you can do is go for longer, go harder, and go faster. That doesn't give you the flexibility or gives your body the chance to create a positive adaptation process. So the way your body adapts is going, right, we're burning a high amount of calories again. We need to get more efficient because we don't have enough calories to utilize. So let's slow the process down of our metabolism, which means your body stops using the body fat and you start getting rid of the expensive tissue, which is your muscle, and you start to pare down and create this imbalance towards what your actual goal is. Because most people want to have a sculpted body. They want to lose the body fat that they're not quite happy with. And as they're attracted to these classes, they see an initial spike and like, fuck yeah, found the answer, this is working. And as they follow it and keep continuing to go to this class environment, they plateau. And then they have a low motivation day or low motivation weeks, or they go on holiday, they take a wee bit of a break for a couple of months, and they gain a ton of weight back. And then they go into the environment again, and brilliant, they see the weight loss, they see the initial spike, they get the hit, they get bought into the idea of, okay, this is working again. But it's not working as quick as it did before. Why is that the case? Oh, I'm just getting older. It's just my metabolism, it's just how I am, I'm just more stubborn. And then there's products, and there's then this whole other market where it's like, do you have stubborn belly fat? Do you feel this and that? Well, it turns out you're not fat, you're just bloated. It's like, no, your body's actually responding the way that it should because of the signals that you're giving it. So fitness classes, that's sort of them in a nutshell. There's other avenues in that. As I said, I'll do a separate episode because it's quite fun to dive into that a little bit more. And look, I know some fantastic fitness instructors. I'm not blanket statement this, throwing this out as a blanket statement, but the reality is this kind of sums up the fitness class in a nutshell. So why are they so popular? Why is there such big demands from them? Why is there so many gyms that do it? Well, let's be honest, like if you're charging 20 quid a month for a membership, already that is, the value's there, you get access to all the equipment. But if you then realise that you're not really using any of that equipment, but you get the chance to go to unlimited classes, 7 to 10 classes running per day, every single day, Monday to Sunday, then you start to think, you know what, that 20 quid's worth it, and you become one of those sleeper members, as we spoke about in a previous episode. Now, not all gyms, but the large corporate gyms will rely on a large percentage of people paying for a membership and not using it. And that's the kind of sad reality of that business model. And when you see 20 quid come out your bank every single month, and then you look at it and you're like, I should probably cancel that because I'm not using that. But then there's a wee voice in your head and it's like, oh, but you get all these classes, you get all this kind of free personal training, you get access to all this equipment, 24 hours, whatever it is. And you think to yourself, you know what, I'll just keep it. I'll definitely go next week. And then it becomes next week. And then before you know it, you've been paying for a gym membership for 8-9 months and you've not used it. So yeah, it's a bit of a, I mean, it's a no-brainer from a gym point of view. It's a nice thing to do. It allows people to connect, allows you to get into an environment with other people, and you can start to make friends, and all that stuff's great. I'm not knocking on that whatsoever. And I used to really be very harsh on my stance with fitness classes, but if I'm being honest, I'll still stand by this point. Fitness classes are designed the people that are attracted to these fitness classes is one of the things I wish gyms done less of and done more of, the small group personal training approach. So what's the difference, Dale? It's the same thing. You get people in a room, there's weights lifting, and you're lifting to the music, you're lifting for a certain period of time, yada, yada, yada. Well, small group personal training is a little bit different. Usually it's a higher price point, but breaking it down, it will sit anywhere between 1, and I've seen it as high as 10 people. I think 10 people is a bit much depending on how many coaches are in the room, but 1 to 8, let's say 1 to 6 I think is a sweet spot where a personal trainer is actually coaching the 6 people that are in there, or coaching the 8 people, maybe coaching the 10 people, depending on how the setup is and all that sort of thing. Now, the structure with small group personal training is a little bit different because it's the same as one-to-one personal training, just to a group of individuals. Now, in the small group personal training world, you still get the benefit of working out with others. You build the community side of things where you're connecting and you're bonding with other people who are on like-minded and on a similar journey to yourself. And the biggest difference with this is there is usually more emphasis put on lifting weights. Now, as we know, the fitness class scene, there's weights there, but it's if you're doing as many reps as you can, as fast as you can for a certain period of time, that isn't going to build any sort of muscle, any sort of strength. Now, it'll build a little bit to begin with, but if it's the same repetitive stress, your body's just going to get better at moving the weight fast. You're not going to really gain a substantial amount of muscle and a substantial amount of toning, as some of these classes kind of highlight to. So with the small group personal training, there's more emphasis on that resistance training. And the good thing about it is, because it's in a small group setting, or the small group personal training, it's usually in facilities like what I've got access to here. It's usually a small box PT facility where there's a bunch of squat racks, and it'd be like it'd be like doing your fitness class on the gym floor. Now, some gyms do this, and this ends up pissing off all the other members who are coming in. They're just like, I just want to get my workout done, but I've got bloody John, the fitness instructor, running fucking a 15-strong fitness class on the floor. And again, even with those classes, don't get me wrong, the whole High Rocks thing is a different conversation, but it doesn't really blend well if you've got a member base of 1,000 to 3,000 members and only 15 to 20 people are going to those classes and everyone else is trying to get in the zone and do their own thing. Then it's a hard balancing act. So small group personal training is definitely better for gyms and boxes who can close their doors and have access to all the equipment. And this is where CrossFit, I guess, if you look at that sort of scenario, it's a similar setup to them. However, that again is a whole different branch to this conversation. We're just talking about the small group personal training aspect. So with the 1 on few, or the 1 to 4, 1 to 6, 1 to 8, 1 to 10, the more I think about it, the whole 1 to 10, like, it mean there would be 5 separate groups of 2s. And I guess it could work. I can see a scenario where it would work, but it becomes very tricky to do. But in those scenarios, like, you have your lifting weights, so you've got access to gym equipment, which means typically there's deadlifts, there's free weights, there's access to use machines and actually program specific sets. And in that programming, it's like, okay, you're going to do 6 to 10 reps here, you're going to do 3 to 6 reps here, and there's certain stations. Now, sometimes in the small group personal training, they get caught up in, I need to make my clients feel like they're sweating, like they've burned, they've earned their Chinese or whatever it is. That was a bit of a thing for maybe the last 5 years, but I definitely think I personally see a shift, which is quite nice to see, where there's more emphasis on, look, we're here to lift weights, we're here to build strength, we're here to build muscle, and in return you're going to see the fat loss that you're looking to lose. So the small group personal training, that allows progression and it allows the ability to do that. Now, there is some downsides to the group stuff, which I still stand by. And the main thing is, well, there's 2 things that come to mind. In the standard models where you pay a £20 membership and you get access to the fitness classes, in the small group personal training, you would usually pay a higher price point for, well, personal training. Personal training, it can be anywhere from £60 a month to £100 a month to £200, £300, £500 a month, depending on the facility, depending on the structure. Some of them do, you can come to all of these classes, and others just do, your structure is Monday, Wednesday and Fridays at these specific times. Now, that's all well and good, but if that's what you're paying for, it means there's not as much flexibility to the one-to-one model. For example, I have a client who will see me at 9 every Monday morning, and sometimes that person is available at 9 or I'm not available because life just gets in the way. So what do? We reschedule that to Tuesday, or we reschedule it to a Wednesday, whenever she is next free. When you're in this group setting, that is harder to manage because you have 6 other people's schedules that can change, and the only answer to this is either stick to the slot, and if they can't make it, then they miss out, or you open up more drop-in slots. So some places don't cap how many people they can bring in, which then makes it a bit of a balancing act when it comes to the challenges, because you have someone coming into the gym that's paying you money and it's like, right, I'm in this small group setting. The less people that's in here, the more attention I'm going to get in terms of my coaching and my personal training. And you come into your class one day and you're like, why is there fucking 14 people here? And it's because those drop-in sessions start to overtake that. Now that I can imagine that just being a challenge from the personal trainer that's doing this, because you have, on one hand, you're trying to please everyone, but on the other hand, it's like, where do you draw the line? So flexibility is definitely a challenge when it comes to the small group personal training. Fitness levels is another challenge. So let's say you're doing a group setting, and it can be really hard. Doesn't matter if you've got 6 people, if you've got 10 people, if you've got 4 people, there is going to be a variation of fitness levels within them. And that's why when it comes to the programming side of things, I actually don't see many people pay much attention to that programming setting. It's usually like, here's the emphasis of what we're doing in today's class. Here's the emphasis of what we're doing in today's group setting. Sometimes it's high intensity. In fact, let's be honest, usually it's branded towards high intensity. But as I said, there's definitely more small group personal training boxes, putting more emphasis on the programming side of things, so there is an end goal of why you're coming here, and that is the best way to go about it, because you have a starting point and you have progression as you get through the weeks. When it comes to the high intensity, it's like, fuck, you're doing 100 wall balls again, you're doing 100 wall balls next week. There is going to be progress made, but not to the same extent. We're coming in week on week on week on week, making these marginal improvements, which overall builds a stronger, healthier and fitter body. So there is a bunch of boxes who do this pretty well. Jordan Green, we had him on the podcast, the owner of Gainline Strength. He has, it's not, I got it wrong, I thought it was a CrossFit box, but he hasn't quite got the certificates for the CrossFit, and I don't know if he wants to be associated with that. But what he does is he does like a gymnastics block, he does a small group like ollie lifting and all that sort of stuff, and within that he's got natural progression through the weeks that you come to that. So there's a kind of clear path mapped out. The guys over at Sin as well, the Strength in Numbers guys, they do it in a much larger setting, so it's not quite small group personal training. It's a wee bit of, I guess, a side note, but again, they put a lot of emphasis in, we've got this big gym floor, there's enough space for everyone to squat, to deadlift, to lift weights, and again, there's a natural path, there's a natural progression on the way through that, depending on when you come into that, which is fantastic. On the flip side of that, I see the more the high intensity side of things, or tapping into the high rock space, where there's a bit more of endurance and a bit more conditioning aspect needed. And good friend Jordan Rennie, just down in Coatbridge, he does a fantastic job at that. The guys from Shona's podcast, Shona McBean, I know in the last episode I said Shona McGee, but the guys over at Harry's Gym, the Greater Than Gym, again do a really fantastic job of tapping into the group model, small group training side of things, or I guess that's not classed as small group training, but again, the group training side of things is where you can see there's different levels to that. So bringing this back to the small group personal training, the sad thing that you start to see with any facility that starts to run this model is it becomes 1 on 4, then it's 1 on 6, 1 on 8, 1 on 10, and then it becomes 1 to 15, 1 to 20. And I understand why, because from a business point of view, there is a higher return on what you can get financially, and there's only so many classes, or should I say so many group training you can run. The more numbers that come to that, the more cost effective you can make it for the individual, but what you lose in that is the ability to actually coach. And then you set out stations and you become a glorified DJ, right? Let's be honest, where you're a motivational person and you're a hype person. Now, there's still ways within that you can make that work, absolutely. But when it comes to the small group personal training side of things, that's really the reason I don't see that many facilities do it, because it means you do have to charge a higher price point. Because if I get, let's say, 10 people coming to like my group setting over 3 times a week for £100 a month, then that brings in £1,000. But if I want to bring in 6 people, then it means I have to charge a higher price point. Or let's say I want to bring in 5 people, it means I have to charge a little bit more. If only 5 people are going to pay me, I then have to double the price for that. So it becomes a very balancing act. Now, with 10 people being in a group setting vs 5 people being in a group setting, I would take the 5 every single day, because I can guarantee I can coach each one of them, making sure their form's perfect, making sure their strength's in a good order, and they're progressing. I don't know how some of these coaches are able to coach upwards of 100 people. And in fact, I know some of them personally, and I know they've got a fantastic team behind them. Behind the scenes, they've got their systems and everything laid out, so it's more efficient. But there is a cost to how many people you can take in, because the quality of what you're able to deliver as a PT, as a coach, starts to drop a little bit. Now, the last con on this is there is a lack of progress depending on where you go for your small group personal training. Not all small group personal training is created equal, just like not all personal training is created equal. And you got your experienced people, your inexperienced people, your people who just stand by their way of training versus others who are maybe a little bit more flexible. And the lack of progress comes up typically in boxes who the only sort of emphasis is on getting your sweat on, because it ties back to the fitness analogy again, the fitness class. Now, where it's still more benefit to go to some of these things than the fitness class, because you will see a longer duration of results. So if you're lifting weights, then you will see everyone come into that environment and you'll see that weight was hard 1 week, it's not as hard the week after, and the week after that it's not as hard, and the week after that it's not as hard. But if there's no structure to the programming and the programming phasing, then you'll see a lot left on the table. Like, you will be walking away with, yes, progress, but not as much as what you could have gained if the programming was laid out. And that's why that's why I'm a big believer of so much emphasis put onto the structure and to the programming, because it doesn't matter how good the programming is, as long as it's phased and tracked. As long as you see week on week I'm doing the same exercise and I'm getting stronger, it's changed up into a next phase. It doesn't matter the order of the exercises, arguably what is the best exercise to do what. See you following that compared to not following it, you will see more return on your investment put into that. So I put that one down as a con, because sadly I see that happening more often than not. And I've got a lot of clients who've came to me because that is the environment they've been caught up in. And I think a lot of this can come from CrossFit as well, because there's a high threshold of what you need to hit. To be honest, it's hard to really comment on this because I know some people personally and I don't know the wide net of CrossFit boxes, but from the outside looking in, it is very high intense as opposed to technique driven. And it's very hard to be technique driven if you've got 20 people coming into class and there's only one coach. And I've found that by running the lifting clubs on a Sunday. That's one of the bigges eye openers I've seen, is as much as I'm doing this for free. And the whole point of that is just to play on that one pillar, as I said, with the fitness classes, is getting people in a group setting, getting a wee bit of a workout in. And the best way I've found to do that is making sure people are taking enough rest in between each of the exercises and in between their sets. But I still find it quite challenging to coach people when I have 13 people coming to one, when I have 19, and it's very hard to make sure everyone's form's locked in, because look, we've all got different experience levels and different expertise and different, even the egos. Usually it comes down to the ego for the guys that I see coming to the lifting club. It's like, mate, just put the weight a wee bit lighter, control it a wee bit more, because it's not about how many reps you can do, it's about how slow can you make that. So as much as there is a couple of cons that comes with the small group personal training, there is pros. And one of the biggest reasons I've decided to open up small group personal training is because, if I'm being honest, out of the 300-400 people I've coached over the last couple of years, there is, I would maybe argue, 30%, right? If I'm being honest, you might think that's quite a high percentage, and I guess it maybe is. A lot of that can be down to how I've applied the coaching and through the changes that I've had. But 30% of clients I've worked with have all seen progress, have seen results, have seen improvements. But as times went on, the longer I've worked with them, consistency's dropped off. And consistency's dropped off even though I'm there for their accountability. They've got their check-ins, they've got their one-to-one personal training in there. That consistency's dropped off, and I truly believe those people who ended up falling away from it wouldn't have fallen away if they were in a group setting where they could connect and be around others in the same environment. There's no coincidence that probably majority of those clients that I'm thinking about that have dropped off, one of the reasons is because they're the only person in their circle who's lifting weights. They're the only person in their circle who's trying to be a little bit more conscientious of their health and their fitness, and they're trying to build a stronger body, and they're trying to get all these rewards from what it is to be a person who lifts weights consistently. And how do you find those people? If you are training one-to-one, right, and this is the biggest mistake I think I've made as a personal trainer, is not creating an environment where all my one-to-one clients can meet up every single week or every 2 weeks or once a month. Because in that meet-up, it's not about what's the right foods to eat, what's the right exercise to do. It's about, oh man, this feels really nice to be around people who I don't have to kind of hide my identity with. I don't have to like lie about how I feel. And you might think, why are you lying? What are you hiding? Like, I've got so many clients in the past who, like, the way they speak about fitness to me is like they love it. They're starting to feel the passion for it. They see the changes that it's making to them, from their mindset to just their physical outlook towards life. And in that same setting, I see, or through conversation, it's like, yeah, like some people are slagging us because I had to go to the gym, and then the peer pressure is like, oh, come on, fuck the gym, just come out for a night out, drink a couple of beers, sit with us, take this, take that. And it's like, why? There's like this contradictory message. Do you know what I mean? So those people absolutely would benefit from the group setting. Now, is there an argument in a world where the one-to-one success that I've had, would they still get the same success if they went to not one-to-one and they went into the small group stuff? Potentially. Not everyone is cut out for the small group stuff. In fact, a lot of people who entered into the small group competition that I was running, I had to get into conversations with a good few of them saying, look, from what you're telling me, I actually think you're better with the one-to-one training, because the group setting is something I would love to get you in, but I want to give you an even more individualized approach. Actually, that's one of the last things I never actually put in the con list, is the structure can be individualized in the small group setting, and a good coach will go in and replace exercises depending on the niggles, the tightness, the ability of the person coming to that. But the opposite side of that is you can't modify a whole workout around one person if all 6 of you guys are on the same journey. Now, I'm going to be trialing this out from Monday onwards, so I might have a different opinion to this in the next 8 weeks, but that's how I see. As much as I've got an 8-week structure to that, there will be modifications that I'll pull on if someone needs it. But it'll be very hard. It'll be very interesting to see what happens if someone comes into that space and I'm like, right, actually, I would like to work with you one-to-one until we get X, Y, and Z, whatever that may be. So the community is the biggest thing. That's the main driving force of doing it in a small group setting. And being a coach, being a personal trainer, it takes away the whole gossiping, right? And this is a hard thing as a personal trainer, because you're building a strong connection and a likable relationship with your client. And it can be very hard to draw a line in the sand and go, right, look, we're here to train. We're here to get you towards your goals. But in that session, sometimes the best thing for that client is to vent and let things off their chest and communicate the problems that's going on in their life. But ultimately, we need to kind of bring that back into the setting of, look, let's train, let's go, we need to dial this in. And that's a balancing act, as the coaches and trainers will know. Like, try to draw the line. It's like, right, come on, like, I know what you're at. You're trying to take longer rest here. We've got 2-minute rest periods. Let's get back to it. The other thing, or the last thing on the pros side of things, obviously I've kind of touched on some of the pros already, but it's a low cost for more frequency. If you look at personal training, I actually don't know what people charge one-to-one, because I've been so disconnected from the gym environment. But I believe it's as little as 30 quid per session and as upwards as £100 per session, depending on how frequent you take it. Now, let's kind of do the math. £100 times 3 across 8 weeks is what, 24 sessions. So £2,400 to work with one coach. Yes, at the higher end of that price point, but let's round it down to £2,000 to work with that coach in a one-to-one over the next 8 weeks. In a small group setting, if you then have 2, 3, 4, 5 people coming into the same time slot, you can make, yes, more money as a personal trainer, but you can also reduce the price of which means there's a lower barrier to entry to get more frequency in terms of the training. So you can pay a coach who might charge £100 per month, you can pay them £40 per session. And that'd be like, what, £120 per week. Doing that across the 8 weeks roughly would be close to £1,000, if just over, in that again can be a more effective model. Now, again, I'm talking about the higher end of this. So some coaches and some small groups will be even cheaper than that. It'll be like pay £100 every single month and you get access to me 3 times a week. And here is the times that you get access to. So that is the pros and cons of small group personal training. That is the difference between small group personal training and fitness classes. As I said, there's a whole other world to this, which is large group training. And there's a fantastic book. In fact, if you're watching on YouTube, and I have a bookshelf behind me, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 11 paperback books. Not even read half of them, but it makes me look intellectual. What I do listen to is audiobooks. I've got a ton of audiobooks that I've listened to, and one of them was Gym Launch by Alex Hormozi. If you don't know who Alex Hormozi is, I think we all know who he is if you're in the business world or self-development world, but he wrote this book, and from a business perspective, he basically outlaid a couple of models that the large group personal training model is one of the most profitable margins that you can run as a gym owner. And he runs through all the numbers in that, and it absolutely is. It's never something I want to do because I don't believe that is truly going to help make an impact in the fitness space. I don't think people have problems working out, but I think a lot of people have problems getting in, or where I want to position myself in the fitness space is helping those overcome their confidence and building stronger and more resilient bodies forever, right? For a longer, healthier, more quality-driven future for themselves and for the family. Now, I want to be able to give them the skills to do that. And I can do that inside 8 weeks, 16 weeks, 6 months, a year, whatever it may be. But having the large group model means that you're running a gym essentially. And yes, I would love one day to have an open box gym, but my heart lies in coaching just now. And I want to be helping people. I want to be at the front line coaching people through that. And you can't do that with the large box things because it's like you pay a membership, you come to these classes, this is your time. And yes, you might be lifting weights. And yes, High Rocks is sort of allowed trainers to fucking capitalise on that market, which is awesome. It's awesome to see because guess what? Everybody's doing something for fitness and they're not out taking drugs and drinking at the weekend, right? So there's going to be more benefits and more beneficial consequences to doing that than doing the other things. And they get the other benefit of the community. They get to meet new friends, meet partners, all this sort of stuff. In fact, there was an interesting thing that was brought up recently that the newest place that people find, or the newest dating environment is run clubs. And it will be the same for the small group, it'll be the same for the large group stuff because there's a ton of people. And that's why hybrid, like fucking it looks sexy, everybody's sweating, everybody's doing their thing, and you can see why there's an attraction towards that. So the large group stuff is a completely different conversation. It's not the same as the small group PTing, and small group PTing isn't the same as fitness classes that are ran out of gyms. So now you can see why I want to run my own small group personal training. I'm making a decision to do 1 to 6 people, and I'm running it over 8 weeks. So that means from week 1 to week 8, there is different progressions through that, and I've got 2 phases built in there. Phase 1 is more of a technical approach, and as much as I'd say beginners can absolutely come to this because I'll be there and I'll have the time to properly coach them, but it is more designed for everyone, but there is an intermediate level where if you've never followed a program or followed a structure towards your training, inside these 8 weeks, you will see more progress, and I will guarantee that you'll see more progress towards your strength, your resilience, your aesthetics, your just ability to progress with 3 sessions per week. And in that, as I said, there's 2 phases, week 1 to 4, week 4 to 8. And one thing I've created is something called the Bulletproof Benchmark. I'm going to release this as something that everyone can do, probably in another couple of episodes yet, but there is essentially 6 pillars. And I'm going to share this because I think this is going to be a valuable assessment that I believe coaches and trainers should do. But essentially the 6 pillars are your standard measurements, weight, body measurements, pictures, right? Pictures is optional. Pictures is always optional. It always should be optional. It shouldn't be something that you're forced to fucking take. But they are the 3 things that most people measure for when it comes to how is progress, which can be a way of measuring. But here's where I've brought in 5 other pillars to do that. We've got a strength pillar. We've got an endurance pillar. We've got a breath work pillar, which is like your VO2 max, your CO2 max, your ability to control your breath and stress. We got your stability test, and then we got your movement pattern. Within the strength stuff, there is a lot of grip stuff, your grip strength, and a few other things, of course. So that I'm going to do a benchmark session with every single one of my small group clients. I'm going to do that at the start. I'm going to do it at the end. And that's how I know I can improve every single aspect of their 6 pillars. I think the points total comes out at, if I'd be lying if I said actually, I think it might be upwards of 40 different points, and then it kind of branches into different brackets. But I've created this benchmark system to compare where you lie as an individual in your age bracket. So I've got someone who is 42, for example. So I'll look at the chart for every one of the assessments that we do. I'll look at that and I'll be like, here's where you compare to the average population of those who work out regularly. And it gives you a different goal, gives you something different to aim towards. And that's what I want to scale up. That's the next thing I want to do from a coaching perspective. I had to kind of step away from coaching earlier in this year, running the podcast, the kind of break up with James, the studio side getting busier. But I'm so excited to get back into this. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm still going to open up one-to-one training slots as well. It's only going to be a handful of them, but the goal is if anyone doesn't, or I don't feel confident that anyone can fit into that small group personal training model, you'll work with me on a one-to-one basis to start with, and then you can go into some of the group stuff as well. So that wraps up today's episode. I'm so excited to get into the small group personal training. The approach that I'm going to take is definitely going to be a little bit different. It's going to be like training with me one-to-one, where you get your own app, you have the structure, you come to me with the structure. And one of the things, like, weirdly enough, calling this bulletproof, I was always thinking, how do I make this small group personal training bulletproof to other aspects? And in the small group world, it's like, oh, if you can't make that session, you're screwed. So I'm going to open up a couple of other slots. That means there is flexibility to book in. Now, the booking in system is going to be important because I'm going to cap it at 6 on each one of them. But the other thing is, because you've got the app that I've got, if you can't make a certain workout, by going through this program, your confidence is going to start to build, and you're going to have the confidence and ability to then go, I can't make Wednesday session at 5:30, so I'm going to go into the gym instead, and I'll do that session in the gym, and then I'll circle back on Friday. Because the most important thing that, to be honest, if a coach hasn't got like their own training app or a training app that's tracked and they can program through, you're missing a massive opportunity, because this is like having me with you as you go to the session, because I do your sets, your exercises, the time to rest in between, and all you have to do is follow that. And if you follow that, if you skip certain things, you have the ability to coach or the ability to write back what went well, what didn't go well, and what you need help with. And then that allows us, when I next see you, to get into some of those things that you maybe found some challenges with. So, as I said, that's going to be something that kicks off today. So at the point of releasing this episode, if you're listening to it on the Monday, that starts today. I'm excited to work with the 6 guys that won the competition. At the point of releasing this episode, I'm going to open up 2 more blocks. Okay, so that means 2 other groups where you have the chance to come into that world. So if it's something that you are interested in, there'll be a link below. Inquire. I'll give you a call. We'll give it a wee catch up, and we'll see if it's right for you. The main thing is that it is the right fit for you. And likewise, if you feel it's something you'd like to do in the group setting, but you don't quite feel you're ready to make that leap and you want to start on a one-to-one journey, then again, I'm going to be limited in how much. I actually think, I was going to say 5, but that's like the typical go-to move. Right now, I've got about 7 clients that I work with on a one-to-one basis, and I don't know if I would extend that any more than 10, if I'm being honest, because the group stuff is going to be very hands-on and very heavy-handed. And with the group stuff, there is obviously the online coaching part as well, where we'll be talking about nutrition and there'll be check-ins and all that sort of thing. So there's lots going on, and I'm excited to get into it and hopefully share some of the wins that the guys are going to see over the next couple of weeks. So with that being said, if you are interested in that, the link will be in the show notes. Fill it out. I'll get back to you when the inquiry comes through. And of course, if you get any questions or anything you would like to ask me, reach out on Instagram at Coach Crossar. You can reach out on the mindset page at bulletproof mindset __. And yeah, I hope to help as many of you guys as I can. I did say there would be something for the online side of things. Now, this is something that I'm going to launch in November, where it'll be the same sort of setting as a small group PT, but on an online format. I've got a couple of ideas. It's basically online coaching, but with more frequency in terms of the support and calls. I don't know if it's going to work, but if you're interested in this, there's going to be a separate link below. I'm going to, again, just like how I've done with the small group stuff, I'm going to pick 5 to 10 people for free to run this for 8 weeks come November. So if you want to get your name down for that and join the sort of waiting list for that, then there'll be a separate link below. Fill that out and I will get back to you in the coming weeks with that. So I hope that helps. Next episode is going to be another sort of fitness news and fitness Q&A. So make sure if you want your question answered, comment below this video, comment on Spotify, reach out to me on Instagram, and I'll answer some of your questions on the next episode. But other than that, have a wonderful day and thank you for listening to today's episode.